Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a wonderful webinar planned for you. Today we're going to be focusing entirely on Copilot for Business, and we'll be discussing the practical uses in Microsoft 365 and Teams. There's a lot of talk about Copilot right now, and we really want to get into what you can tangibly, realistically do to leverage it for your organization. So before we get into it, just a couple of items I'd like to go over. First of all, we're going to keep this high level today. Of course, we could probably teach a whole, graduate level course on, on Copilot at this point. There's so much to learn, so much to do, and so many different ways to leverage it. But we will keep it high level, give you a little bit of some ideas here. And if you'd like to get a little bit deeper, would definitely invite you to do a one-on-one demo afterwards. Contact us for that and we can get into more of the details here. Also, feel free to ask questions today. We're here to help. I know there's a lot of, many people have a lot of questions right now about what to do with Copilot, how to leverage it. So feel free to use that question box. And lastly, this will be recorded. So if you've registered for the webinar ahead of time, we'll be sending this recording out to you afterwards. We'll also be posting on our website as well as our YouTube channel. So no need to feverishly write down notes or anything like that. You'll have access to the recording after the fact. So without any further ado, I'd like to go ahead and get things started here and introduce today's speakers. We have Scott Restivo, our CEO here at Crow Canyon, as well as James Restivo, our VP of Operations, and they have a lot of interesting things to share with us. So I know ultimately we're all here for the content today. We all really just want to get into it. So I won't take up any more time. I'd like to go ahead and turn things over to our wonderful CEO, Scott.
Thank you, Krista, for that introduction. And thank you everyone for attending this webinar today. We're going to focus, as Krista said, on real practical AI-based solutions deliver results to your organization. We want them to be safe, reliable ways to implement AI. As many of you know, anybody who's not living in a cave somewhere in the wilderness, there's an incredible amount of hype going on right now about AI. It's all over the news. I get emails all day about, how this company's added AI to their organization or AI to their products. It's just AI, AI, AI. I've been at a number of conferences this spring alone with Microsoft conferences and all over the US and other parts of the world. And it's all about Copilot AI, Copilot AI. So this hype cycle is really interesting diagram to show that this is a common case with the web. I guess you could even include way back when PCs first came out, web came out, mobile came out, cloud came out. They all kind of follow the same pattern, in which Gartner has stylized as the hype cycle, where there's this peak of inflated expectations, and there's a lot of that going on right now. If you notice it, AI can do this, AI can do that, AI, Copilot. And then it turns out to be there's a certain reality, and then it goes down into this, what they call the trough of disillusionment, before it finally comes back up and becomes the norm. Just like everybody uses web, everybody uses mobile now, and it's just part of the society, and AI will get there. But our goal at Crow Canyon is to deliver real practical AI solutions, not get caught in the hype, not get caught in that. We've been through it before. I've been in this business over 30 years. I've seen the web, I've seen the cloud, mobile in the cloud, and our goal is to keep a nice steady pace of delivering real practical solutions that have benefits to your organization. We've been doing this AI work for quite some time. We took a look back and said, yeah, we ought to be doing AI for years. We use natural language processing in our knowledge-based searches. We've done sentiment analysis where incoming emails are analyzed as far as tone and can highlight a customer support question or issue that needs attendance. We've had virtual agents. We built our NITRO Engage bot. We were really big into bots 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We still are, but I mean, we started the whole bot framework, using the bot framework to build our NITRO Engage bot in Teams. So we've been doing this for quite some time. And what our focus at Crow Canyon, the Crow Canyon Software, has always been business process automation, how to make operations run more efficiently at your organization, whether it's a help desk, a support desk, an asset management, equipment tracking, work orders. A big one lately has been purchasing, how to do that. And on mostly the Microsoft 365 platforms. So of course, it was SharePoint Online, SharePoint on premises some time back, still doing some of that. But mostly it's in M365 and Teams now. So what we have look at it this way, we say BPA, which is business process automation, plus AI is now IBPA. We're calling it intelligent business process automation. And really, we see this as a natural progression of the business process automation applications that we have. It's the idea that it isn't something totally new coming out of nowhere, AI, just to implement AI just because it's the latest and greatest thing. But how does it really apply to business process automation? How can we enhance our applications so that the copilots and the AI elements, the large language models and everything, enhance the capabilities of the application and therefore enhance the efficiency and productivity of your organization? So there's a number of use cases here that we already are working on over the past year or so, maybe year and a half, of how to implement AI solutions. And this is just a list that we came up with of projects we've been working on. We'll go into more detail at some of these later in the webinar. But HR documents came up a lot. Policies and procedures, standard operating procedures, employee guidelines, user manuals, FAQs, support sites, construction specs, quality control, and many, many other similar things where people are trying to manage large amounts of information and data sets and do it in a way that is efficient and gives answers quicker, whether to employees or customers or to the staff, and then can construct some Gen AI stuff where memos and emails and other elements out of that set of data that is there. So I thought one good thing to do right away would be to jump into an example of what we've done. And I'll talk about this and then show some demo. And then we'll go more into other use cases. We have right here a government situation where there's a housing authority. This just happens to be the example we'll use right now, but it applies across many, many aspects of government. We also work in the manufacturing space, education, healthcare, food production, customer support in general, all these other areas that we've been working on. Banking and finance is another one. Implementing AI solutions. I thought it'd be good to come up with this one example. So let me talk about this a moment. This housing authority in the large U.S. city manages, housing, of course. And what they do is they have in their department, they have something like 200 to 300 policies and procedure docs, and they had sort through them to find out disability policies and harassment policies and leave and all these other things. So we built an HR copilot for them that's been very successful, and they're using it both for the employees and for the staff. Now, this HR is kind of a horizontal, meaning that HR, of course, is in many organizations. So even though we're talking about government using HR in this case, it could apply to any HR situation out there. This is just the example we brought in. The other aspect to this housing authority that is probably more unique to them is that after we did this copilot for the HR, we are now implementing another copilot for the people who live in the housing, because the people who live in the housing, they have apartments and buildings all over the city. These residents need to know what we could call almost the CCNRs, or the policies of the housing. What's the pet policy? What is the pet policy? What is the where can I park my car? What happens if I'm late on rent? And all these kind of things. So they're going to implement a secondary one. But I'm going to show you the copilot that we developed for them. Now, here's what happened. This is not, we cannot go to their live system, so we replicated it in a demo environment. And then after we do this, we'll talk more about the other use cases, and maybe some questions will come up. So I think it'd be interesting to show a demo of this HR copilot right away and drill into this for a bit as to what happens here. So here's inside of a HR help desk that we have. This is from a staff perspective. there is a Copilot. So you go HR Copilot here, right on the menu, and find it. Of course, there's other places where there's all the requests that are being made, all the things that need to be responded to. You know, the request to the HR help desk could come from many sources, but some of them come from the Copilot. Now we're looking to, I mean, they are looking to broaden the use of this in the user base and make it part of standard way to first enter in the question to the HR help desk. So let's show something going on now. Just to address this, it knows who I am logged in here in this demo environment. We have some prompts already pre-configured right here. Now this is all configurable on the back end inside our NITRO Copilot that runs this HR Copilot, and the icons and all these tiles can be configured. And then there's a query box, and there's different things you can do: new chat, end chat, or send to HR. So this is what a staff member would look at. From the end user's point of view, there's several ways you can present it to the end user. Now, it's essentially a web part that runs in a web page. And same thing here, but we added on more capabilities over here. Now, forgive me, this is a demo environment. We didn't have a chance to make a really fancy HR portal with all colors and pictures and, you know, dress it up. We're really, you know, we're programmers at heart, and application development. So, you know, the UI element is we would incorporate this in this large city is incorporated into their HR portal, which already has all those elements in it. So now this also, by the way, this also runs in Teams. So we have a Teams app that runs the same capabilities inside of Teams. So you got this HR Copilot running in Teams also. So back to this staff here. So back to the user end interface, and say like this: I need to update my contact information. Update emergency contact information. Okay. I want to, how do I do it? Whatever phrase they want to put in there. And what it's going to do is use the LLM, use the model here to come back with what it found in the set of documents. Now, where is this set of documents? It's in the HR help desk in the HR documents, which is tightly controlled as far as permissions and all that. But it's a document library inside of SharePoint that has a set of information, a very controlled set of information, a known set of information. We're not going out to MS Graph and worrying about data security and who has rights to what. This is a document library where what is put in there is a known set of information. We call it a targeted data set that's been vetted by the HR, and HR only has the rights to add or delete from it. So you know you're going to get, you're not going to have sensitive or confidential data in those documents themselves, but any confidential information that may come out of that would come from based on the user's login. So let me show you what goes on here. So to update your emergency contact information, please follow these steps. So it's giving the person instructions, but here's even pretty cool. And not only the instructions, there's also, you know, a list of citations down here, but there's also the ability to click this and go to the actual form. Here it is, emergency contact form. And if I need to change anything right here, I can make a change. All this is just bogus information, and make a change and then submit it, even sign it with, you know, whatever way. It's easier on a mobile device, but on a desktop, you can sign it and then submit it to HR, and they will then work on updating their information. Now, the thing is, we didn't want this to write directly to the database, emergency contact database, because you want to vet it through a human usually first to make sure what's being written there is correct. But what's interesting here is it's using the HR Copilot, but it's pulling the information from another set of information out there, whether it's a SharePoint list or an HR database or whatever. It's pulling information from wherever that emergency contact information sits. Now, this is what we mean about the Copilot integrating the AI and the BPA. It's not just giving an answer, here's how you fill out your form, good luck. It's saying, well, look at this. We're going to give you the actual link to it, and not only the actual link, the link with your information so you can update it right then and there. And then you go ahead and update, save that, and HR gets a notice that, through the normal processes that we have when a new request comes in order to go ahead and update that information, look at it, vet it, or if we could make it so it writes directly to the database, but it's whatever you want as far as the level you want to go with this. It's, we build these things suited to your organization's needs, requirements, and security framework. So it's, in this case, we just send it to HR, and HR will look at it and say, okay, I'm going to go to the database and then run a process to update that information. Or they may have other questions for the user, like, you filled out this wrong. The same idea with the leave request or insurance or other things like that. And when this conversation goes on, you can rate it, and that goes back to the HR to know if their answers are right, if they need to. This is this continuous cycle of improvement. They can copy it and copy the conversation, or they can email it to somebody, start a new chat in the chat, or just send the whole thing to HR as a request. Pretty cool stuff, really. It really works quite well, and it's very interesting. A way to tie together AI plus BPA to make this whole business process automation work. Now, if you're on the back end, well, like what I call the back end here, as a staff, I'm now switched to being a staff member here. In the HR department. Again, believe me, this could be like we're using HR as an example. HR seems to be a very common use, but it could be any department that has a set of documents. They're right here. HR documents is the document library. You got your Copilot feedback here. You got your workspace, your dashboards, and all that. That's normal part of our business process solutions on M365. So now you have this staff interface, and let's do some things here. I did have some prompts that could be kind of interesting. So I just can copy this over rather than type it all. It says, generate an email on our disability policy, well, on disability, to Manish at Crow Canyon from the HR, coming from the HR department. Right? Okay. And this is where Gen AI gets really interesting, because now it's going to read the disability policy and construct what it thinks is an email. Really facilitates the staff's ability to do things. Here we go. Dear Manish, hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to inform you about Crow Canyon's policy on disability, yada, yada, yada. And, here you go. Your name, you can copy this. First, you can check the source if you want, but you can copy it or send it to email, and then, use this construct as a way to use this, copy this and just plop it into an email and send it out to Manish. Like that. Pretty good stuff. Pretty cool. Makes it a lot easier for people to get work done. And there's many other ways you can do this. Here's another one, another prompt. And I'll end this chat and start a new chat. But see, I can rate it when I ended it. I'll just cancel that right now. So another one could be, write an onboarding plan for new marketing intern. Now you can get more elaborate with this much experience, or make it a 10-day plan or something. So now you're getting a lot of functionality out of this tool to give you things you might need in HR. Here's an onboarding plan for new marketing intern. Now this is being created in real time in this demo right now. There's no the only thing I copied in was the prompt rather than have to type it. And it's coming back with this 10-day plan here, or 15-day, I guess, actually, plan right here. And of course, you can take that, copy it, and then use it in some kind of Word doc or a document or whatever, make a schedule. And if anybody's used Gen AI, and maybe you guys have Chat GPT or something like that, you can say, write this in a more formal, do it as a bulleted point. Other ways of presenting this information, write it as so a 12-year-old could understand it. Write it in, I even tried one time, write it as a pirate would speak, and it would say, I made your training plan be this. It was kind of funny. It's what you can do with this. I mean, that's more parlor tricks than actually useful stuff, but it's fun. You can say, write it more formal, write it more informal. How do you want the tone to be? Those kind of things. Now, one thing that we've done with this NITRO Copilot is there is a settings where you decide on, you give it a pre-prompt as what we call instructions on what kind of tone, formal, friendly, whatever you want to say. So you set up the tone of this beforehand. Here's another one, write a job description for marketing manager for 500-person company. And it'll come back and give you this, based on what it thinks is a good plan. It's pretty quick, right? So here we go, 500 employees, location, director of marketing, full-time, key responsibilities, qualifications, not a bad start at all. Again, you could copy that or send it out and then use it, because you could put it into a Word doc or PDF or whatever and use it in your HR system. And then another one that's more applicable to Crow Canyon, to the company, the company, not just more generic like a job description, is like, okay, what's the social media policy here? What is the policy on social media use at work at Crow Canyon? Somebody may have that question. Now, this could be like one of your prompts up here. If people are asking it a lot, you can look at it and say, well, maybe just make it one of the prompts up here. That's up to you how you want to configure that. And this is now reading those docs from the HR documents, personal social media, email, whatever it says there, it doesn't matter, but it's the actual policy from the handbook there. Okay, to end that chat. So that is some uses of that. Now, James, are you there, James?
Yep, I'm here.
Do you want to show some of the things you did with the budget documents and the budget copilot? James whipped up this budget copilot just to see, show some things in this demo. Do you want to switch over to your screen for a few minutes, and then we'll get into the use cases and other things that we can do here. All right.
Absolutely. All right, just to make sure I'm sharing the right screen here before I go, and let me just double check. Sure. Yes.
Yep,
Budget Copilot. Yeah, so really just wanted to highlight that it's, we're focused on HR documents, but really the whole concept behind it is that you can point it to any set of documents, whether that's a set of budgetary documents, HR documents like we're showing, budget documents like I'm going to show, or some other set of documents. You have a defined and limited source of information that you can control, and with that, through access management policies, through using integrations with our system, with the HR request system or some other type of request system that we offer, you can limit when those policies get updated, who has access to them, how often they get updated. So you can have a lot of that control, and that really helps control what your end users are getting back from their responses with AI. And I think that's one of the big pieces of this as far as how you can do it responsibly, right? So the idea is that you want to have responsible AI in your organization, and it really comes down to you being able to control what that content is that it has access to. So Microsoft Copilot goes out and gets all your enterprise data, which is great. So that does keep it contained within your domain. And this takes it a step further and keeps it contained maybe within a department's domain, one area, and you have a lot more control over that. But what I did is, use the tools that we have to build this out, no code at all, and was able to point this to our to the backend system that needs to point to, and pointing to the budget documents library. And now we can ask it some questions. So similarly, I had created a few pre-canned prompts over here that I can just go ahead and pop in. So we're going to write a memo outlining the results of the FY23 audit. So this kind of shows a couple different things. One, that it can generate that memo, and two, that it's using the real data that we have behind the scenes here in this budget documents library. So it's pulling up information that the audit was confirmed and complete, accurate, complete. We can look at expenditures, we can look at recommendations, and then it gives a conclusion. And again, similar to the memo to Manish from earlier, we can copy and paste this out into an email program and modify it to whatever needs are adequate for our situation. So that's just one, we could take this a little further, but this is one a possibility. And just click new chat, get it to a new one. I have another prompt over here. Can you summarize our budget policy documents? And so really just chatting with it like it's a real person, like it's my assistant. That's really what the whole AI concept is that your digital assistant to help you, get some stuff done, maybe do a little bit of analytics, maybe get write memos very quickly. You saw how quickly that happened. This is not, again, this is not a video. This is my live screen that is pulling up this information and pulling this data from this budget documents right as we're talking right now. So this is all live, happening in live time. And you can see it's got the, it's summarizing our documents. So as it summarize the documents, and it's able to do that, it gives me some numbers, breakdown by expenditure types. Now, admittedly, the budget documents I have in here are pretty simplistic, but certainly if you have more complexity, I know from other areas of my life that there's budget codes, a whole list of budget codes that you can put in here, and you probably, it would come back with a breakdown of your expenditures by budget code, and then you can compare it year over year. And I can even ask it like doubled up questions. So here I'm going to restart this chat again, and I'm going to put in a, what's our FY fiscal year 25 forecast for next year? And do we expect to make more revenue in FY25 compared to, compared to what? I don't know, because I'm not putting it in here, but the LM, the budget documents only talk about FY23 and FY24. So I think it's going to have some sense of that. But you see, it chose FY24. So it kind of chose the most recent year to compare it against. And you can see right here, it's got the projected revenue across the different types of income, what the total revenue is, what the projected expenditures are, and then what's the comparison to the previous year, and then a quick synopsis with, hey, we did 7 million last year, we're going to do 70, budgeted for 7.3 this year in FY25, and then the supporting documentation is down here as well. So it's got great things. We also put in a strategic plan in here as well. So another one we can put in here. I can even just use the same prompt. I don't even have to start it. And let's see, start it new. So let's summarize our strategic plan. I can ask it more detailed questions about this. If you've used ChatGPT or some of these other tools, you can really get into and really prompt it in a more directed way, where you can say, I want you to write, like my dad was saying, write it in the tone of a pirate or whatever, but which is kind of silly for a business scenario, but it is it's possible, which is crazy. But the other part I wanted to show you here is just one more prompt I want to show, and I'm going to start a new chat here, is that this information I'm about to put in here, what's a gap analysis? GAAP, what's a gap analysis? I have a general question about it. I've heard it, someone said it on my team. I'm a little bit of a newbie. I don't really know what that means. This is not in our budget documents, but because it does have a connection out to OpenAI, it can go and get that information. It might take a minute. Well, it didn't take that much longer, but you can see it's going to give me a whole synopsis of what generally accepted accounting principles are, which is what the GAAP, the GAAP principle is. So you see, you get that information. You can even say, tell me more about it, or things like that. But really, just give, it's again, this is a useful assistant that you can have pointed to a specific set of documents that you can control, and still gives you the ability to go out and get information from the web, from other resources as needed. But it's going to focus on your budget documents or whatever repositories you point it to first, right? So that's going to be your primary source of information. And so you're really just giving it that primary source, and then it can go pull information from elsewhere as needed to fill in the gaps. And if it doesn't know the answer, it'll tell you it doesn't know the answer, or you didn't give it enough context. But again, this was a very, I want to say simple. it was easy to set this up for me, and I'm not a coder by any means, so it was fairly straightforward. But again, you can tie it into tying into process. You can you put your question here. You don't quite get the question answered that you want to from the budget document list. You can go, hey, send a request to finance. That can go send a ticket over to your finance team to say, hey, someone's got a question about the budget, or the CFO wanted to know more about these details, or this document's missing, or I'm not seeing this document available, or the numbers look wrong, whatever it might be. You can have a follow-up process to go and get that corrected, or get the information that you need. But yeah, that's what I wanted to show about that budget document, just to show that there is other there are other scenarios and other ways that this is used. I know we're focused on the HR piece, but there's a myriad ways that this could be used.
Well, that's great. Thanks, James. It switched over to my screen, right? So we're back on mine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
back on your screen.
Yeah, no, that's good. That really shows that this goes way beyond what HR can do. It could be any number, and some of our use cases will point out in these other fields what we can do. So a quick run through on some of the background, I guess under the covers, under the hood of NITRO Copilot, and then we'll go into those use cases and describe them, which I think are really fascinating for me and fun. So NITRO Copilot is using Microsoft, it's using Copilot technology to make your BPA applications more effective. It's, this is Copilot technology, that's LLMs and the RAG model and the vectorization and all that. We have an architecture for anybody who wants to look at this a little more detail. We have multiple data sources as our foundation. It could be different formats and different locations and different places that are pulled together through the Copilot mechanics, which, if anybody's interested, we can talk to you in much more detail. It's what we can really geek out on it if you want, the one thing that we do with our NITRO Copilot that is not possible at, say, Microsoft Copilot Studio, is we can use different LLMs. We can use Claude 3 or Llama or any of those ones that are more appropriately for your organization. Our goal here is to provide the best AI solution, whether it's using NITRO Copilot and along with Microsoft's Copilot and other, whatever works best. We are concerned not so much about the technology. I mean, we're concerned about technology, but our concern is about providing the best solution to you. User engagement can be in many different formats. We showed web, the SharePoint, the web, our business applications, portals, Teams, whatever. Main thing is to deliver this output of answers or initiate workflows with a feedback loop that gives continuous improvement. The NITRO Copilot, we're offering like end-to-end solution with automation built in by integration with our request manager and NITRO Help Desk. We're making it easy to implement with just enough configuration where you can decide what prompts and what tones and that kind of thing, and also what different LLMs you want to use, different than OpenAI. Maybe you don't always want to use that. I don't know. And it's fully supported by us and mobile Teams and interface, web, mobile, SharePoint, Teams, portal interfaces for this situation for the Copilot. The way it works with Microsoft, if you look at it, there's many different Copilots. Can drive you crazy, as many as there are. There's of course, Copilot Studio. There's Azure OpenAI Studio, Azure AI Studio, and our development team looked at all these different things. Said, yeah, they have some uses. I mean, okay. Sure, Copilot Studio, we use that. We build some stuff in it. But the thing is, if you really want to get down to the what is really an enterprise level Copilot implementation, you got to go down to the programming level and decide, because what we can decide what kind of RAG model, what kind of vectorization, what kind of semantic searches, what kind of LLM you want to use, and all these different technical things make a very different output as far as the accuracy and the effectiveness of the Copilot. We use Copilot Studio, and not that we never would again. We would, of course. We use the other Azure, OpenAI, Azure AI, whatever's appropriate for the best solution. But that's the thing, the best solution for your organization, not just use a tool because it's there or easy to use, but it has limitations. There are a number of YouTube videos and conferences I've been to where they talk about the limitations of that. And we wanted to give a full-featured end-to-end solution that incorporates already our business process automation in it. So it's a very interesting approach. We look at what matters to users: accuracy, performance, availability, ease of use, useful output, and the time saved. What matters to organizations: look at all these, avoiding the things on the left, inaccuracies, hallucinations, and biased responses. That's very important, that you don't get bias or discrimination or expose, and then on the right, expose private information or data exfiltration. You have tight access control. We approach these projects with 3 stages, which are preparation of your organization in the sense of what are your business goals, what are you trying to achieve with this, what do you hope to achieve, what user set's going to use it, something realistic. Again, real practical AI solutions, not this pie in the sky and peak of inflated expectations. We're going to solve world hunger. Well, literally, I saw a YouTube on that. AI will solve world hunger. But solve world hunger, make you multi-million dollar, all this stuff that's super hype. We're looking at what can this really do for your organization? And which hopefully some of the examples we showed, which James showed and the HR one I showed, give you some taste of what's possible. The other thing about preparation is data preparation. You want to use data. You want to make sure there's insensitive, confidential, biased data out there. Now, if you use the MS graph, which is certainly a possibility, you have to make sure you're not going to unearth things that are, user may have access to things you don't know about. We did a project where, this was being unearthed, surfaced, you could say, our data that was from like 10 years ago, and AI just treats it like there's data, here it is, but it was totally outdated, inaccurate. So, unless you have really good data governance, you want to keep to a targeted data set, and even on the targeted data set, have that. So a large part of what we do is help the organization prepare the business. We did a whole webinar, I think last month it was, or within the month or so, on AI from end user perspective, how to do user adoption, how to do change management in the organization, how to work with the goals of the AI. And the other part of that was also talking about data governance, implementing document management system, access control. We can help you with all that. Next is implementation. Like James said, it's pretty straightforward. We was able to do that budget one. You just install it. We have all the configuration done behind the scene. And then the continuous cycle of improvement is quite important too, to get that feedback loop going, what we can do there. So anybody wants to talk about this, we can talk about it in detail with you and find out solutions. Now, I want to look at some of these use cases and sort of stimulate some ideas that I find this fascinating and interesting and challenging and really, really kind of exciting what's happening in the AI world. So let's go into a few things here. And we already saw this list, but I'm gonna go into particular details and talk about things here. I already talked about the HR and the government, the perspective. James talked about the budget. Now, aged care is an interesting one. We run another property of ours is called Asset Journey. Here's the Crow Canyon website. And then one of our other properties down in Australia is assetjourney.com. We have hundreds of villages down there, retirement villages and aged care facilities using our asset management software to manage the assets that are in the retirement villages and aged care facilities. They have to be held up to certain government standards that are, New South Wales or Victoria or Queensland. I was down there last fall at some conferences and talking to them about, working, visiting customers and going to conferences and doing all that about aged care. Fascinating. Maybe because I'm getting older, it's more interesting to me. I don't know. Or my parents are in this. So it is something we have to deal with in life. But anyway, what happened with the AI aspect of it is this: the aged care providers. Now, whether you're in a retirement village, aged care facility, or could be any kind of healthcare clinic. So this is really healthcare, almost aged care should say healthcare there, because we're talking about the operating procedures, guidelines, and documentation that staff has to follow and the village has to follow to abide by certain regulations. Although there's another kind of document that can be done through these kind of copilots, and we're working with them, with the group down there in Australia, to implement that. And we also have another section we do here called Environment of Care in the hospitals here that is in the healthcare department, where a partner of ours is doing this Environment of Care for hospitals. So, this is another possible solution that we can use in connection with that here, EOC compliance, where we do, they have to maintain the equipment. Anyway, there's many uses of AI throughout many organizations and possibilities here. So another one is throughout the healthcare industry, we're finding all kinds of ways to use it. Other than the obvious one of doctor diagnosis or things like that. That's not so much. We're more into the guidelines, the standard operating procedures, the documentation that involves what kind of care to give to the, what are the guidelines, what are the standards, what are more than the actual diagnosis stuff. We'll see if we go in that direction. I don't know. Another part of this is that they're maintaining these assets down in Australia, down in the aged care facilities, and using AI to help with the maintenance is also quite an interesting direction we're going in, because the people, the maintenance workers have their smartphones, whatever, and they take a picture of a part that's broken. And we're looking at building tools to use imagery that can say, oh, that part is from this type of model of refrigerator or dishwasher or whatever, and then be able to identify that part through connection to manufacturer databases and other sources, image libraries, and then be able to say, okay, that part, you can order a new one here, or here's the YouTube or guidelines or user manual on how to fix it. That's pretty deep if you think about it. You're taking a picture of a broken thing and it's telling you what part it is, how to order a new one, how to fix it, or how to replace it, whatever information you want. Really accelerates the whole process of maintenance tasks. Another one is education. I'll go through some of these fairly quickly, but anybody gets any ideas, wants to talk, we are really excited by what's possible and out there. And it's, I've been in this, there's times when, the business is a little slower, and times when it's really accelerating. And this is the time when it's really accelerating in terms of, wow, we're not just, doing the same thing over and over. There's a lot of new cool stuff coming out with this AI. And again, real practical uses, not getting lost in that inflated expectation, but seeing what we can really provide of value to your organization within the near-term time frame. So education, there's obviously a lot with courses and student documents and guidelines. There's manufacturing, where there's standard operating procedures, and then the operators of it have to follow, and that kind of thing. Another interesting one is in construction industry, and I'll go a little more detail in this one if you can indulge me here a minute, because I find this one kind of fascinating. There's a project to build something. The project has certain specifications of certain kinds of equipment, like HVAC, like fire smoke dampers and stuff, have to go in according to government, according to the architectural diagrams, a lot of times abiding by regulations, especially if it's a school or a hospital they're building with HVAC. The fire smoke dampers have to be a certain standard of meet certain standards, the ISO and UAL and I don't know, all the details like that. So the vendor comes along and says, okay, I can supply this fire smoke dampers. And so what happens is they're suggesting a fire smoke damper from a manufacturer. So normally the project managers or the people who deciding what vendors to use have to vet all this stuff manually. So we're working on a system that puts all the project specs in a certain kind of database, you could say, at high level. Just take it high level. I don't go into details. I'd be here for another half hour. So anyway, it's in this, the project specs are over here in the database. The vendors are submitting forms that are like, here's what proposals. We're going to use these fire smoke dampers. And meanwhile, the manufacturer of the fire smoke dampers has their specifications up there on the web. So through a combination of AI, web scraping, agent swarms, we're able to say, does what this vendor is proposing meet that from the manufacturer's website, meet the project specifications over here, and then give this information back to the project manager to say, well, you might want to be careful about that one, or this one doesn't meet the specifications, or whatever responses to be. And we're being told that this could save weeks and weeks of work at the construction industry, because if they get the wrong piece of equipment in that doesn't meet the standards, or they have to replace it, it bogs down the whole project. So these are the kind of things where we see real practical, you can tell I'm kind of excited, I guess, by these kind of things, the challenges like this to do, and it's really fascinating. Another direction, customer support is another big one where we're doing a lot with combining FAQs, manuals, things on the web, whatever, to help provide customer support. And the other thing we're doing here going forward is looking for more multimodal aspects to it, where you can just take your smartphone, your end user could say, I need to update my emergency equipment. I need to update my emergency contact information. And it will come, you're just talking to it through audio, or perhaps even, like I said, take the picture of the broken part, or even a video perhaps. So, we'll see where this goes. And what we're going to say is we really hope that any of you listening to this are excited as we are about the possibilities without getting lost in inflated expectations, and then start a conversation with Kroken Software and us here. We do this literally, and I'm not even kidding, night and day. We're neck deep in it. I go to conferences, other people here, we go to conferences all the time. I can't, I was trying to, where I've been in the last 6 months, or I don't know. I mean, where was I? Just in Seattle last week at that conference, and there was, there's conferences in Florida and Texas and all over. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And then watching the videos, we're friends with the MVPs. So if, we hope you see us as the people with the many years of experience in business process automation, with bringing the AI elements, whether it's copilots, large language models, vector databases, whatever, into the mix. It's going to help accelerate your organization. And we'd be really willing to hear what your needs are, how you think this technology could be used, and even if it's just pie in the sky ideas, let's talk, because this is where it's going to go and where these solutions to these challenges are going to come in place. And meanwhile, we keep trucking along in what we're doing here and finding solutions, implementing AI, finding out the nitty gritty of it rather than the hype, and making it work so that it brings greater efficiency and productivity to your organization and make sure your life and your employees' life easier. I mean, that's the whole goal, is to make less stress, easier work, and lighten the load a bit there of, like I say, routine, tedious questions that come in, or get a fix done sooner, or not have some screw up of having the wrong piece of equipment at a construction site, or the wrong responses at customer support, or have to answer questions over and over. Anyway, so what we're talking about here, again, just to summarize, real practical AI uses that are safe, secure, and provide real solutions, quick, easy, reliable answers, and business process for your users with a targeted data sets. Staff benefits greatly by being able to generate using Gen AI, or even reduce workload, easy to implement in your environment. So James, I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. Oh, let's put up the let's get in touch slide. But there we go. And James, any questions, anything come up that we want to cover else here?
Yeah, just a couple things that came up. One question, I think it was earlier when we were doing the demo, the question was about is the conversation stored into, where is it stored? Is it logged in the back end somewhere? And we do have a feedback list that the responses can be stored into the feedback list, but that's optional if you don't want to use that. And ultimately, even if you don't use that, if your user sends the conversation to a request, it will come through in that request. So that would be on the user to make that determination. They would proactively create the request, and that conversation would go over to the feedback list. Another good question we got was about you're just showing the feedback list over here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pop around on that a little.
Another good question we got was about why two different co-pilots? Why do we have one for HR, one for the budget, and why not just one? And I think the best answer there is that it is because each co-pilot serves a different purpose, and if a general copilot, even like ChatGPT or any of those tools, you have to tell it what you want it to do, right? You have to act as a budget analyst, or you have to be an HR representative, or whatever it is. So if it's got competing pieces of information, competing sources of information, it might get confused on what it's supposed to be doing or what it's supposed to be answering. So this is, so this is the idea is that on the settings behind it, you're pointing it to that particular library, so the user doesn't have to even give it that context, right? So so it's not going to be giving you content from another library that's unrelated to the situation you're dealing with. Also, there's a whole idea of the control around it. We talked about doing responsible AI. You want to make sure that you can control the documentation that's the source of the information, and who has access to it, when it's updated, how often it's updated. So that's where these kind of specific, they're called RAG model copilots, are sort of different. They're different than what you can do with like a general copilot for 365, right? So you can have a general copilot for 365 with lots of access to all your enterprise data. One of the challenges there is, I don't think we talked about it too much, but the data governance has to come into play. You have to make sure you know what people have access to across your whole organization. Now you're not just talking about one department or one set of data. It's your entire scope of data across the enterprise has to be controlled, which is certainly fine, and a lot of companies are able to do that, and that's great. It's just another piece of the puzzle you have to be cognizant of when you're trying to use this stuff. That's where I think these retrieval augmented generation RAG model copilots make a lot more sense in my mind, in the sense of you're focusing it on a specific purpose. You don't have to train it or tell it or prompt it to be a particular thing or act as a certain thing. It's pre-programmed into it, in a sense of this is what it is. It's looking at budget documents. It brings back budget information. It's looking at HR documents.
Or like the IT help desk brings back KB information about
Right. IT
KB
help desk
problems.
brings that. Exactly. It brings about KBs from, it's not telling you what the HR policy is because it has no access to it. And you never know how people are going to use this stuff either. So
we can be adaptable as needed. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so, clear, like most things as an organization, we're going to respond to what people need and what the market's looking for. So we'll certainly,
Well, the other thing, James, is that you can tweak the individual copilots according to how it does, and this is technical, but how many documents retrieve, how the semantic search works, what LLM to use, how to vectorize it. All these different things can be done individually according to the exact needs of that department's copilot. Whereas, if you do a general one, like you said, it may not only give you the information from another department, it may also not be optimized for what you're using it for. Like I can see the construction world, project management could be very different than, say, HR, in how you want to turn the dials on the copilot, which is what the advantage of using what we do. Go down to the mat, the raw programming, you could say, of, in Azure. We use Azure, of course, and Microsoft technologies, but at more of a raw level, a base level, so we can build these things really appropriately for your specific needs, rather than kind of a generic copilot that, like I said, the important things are accuracy, performance, avoiding hallucinations, speed of response. Those are things that have to be considered to really be successful, right, James?
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, I know we didn't really want to get into the back end side of things, but we are getting some questions about it. Like, what does the back end look like? So maybe, kind of towards the tail end here, I got about 8 minutes left in the hour. Maybe we could spend a little bit of time going through the back end side of it. Just kind of show people what it is.
Well,
for those that are interested.
It's really a setup in Azure that is using certain technology, certain services and technologies there. It's complex. It's complicated. Let's put it that way. Well, it's not like any secret sauce or anything, but it would take more than a few minutes to do. But basically, I guess at a high level, you could say, of course, there's the LLM. The LLM is the LLM is the LLM. I mean, that's either OpenAI or Claude 3 or Llama or Gemini or whatever one. Most of the time we're using OpenAI, but OpenAI also has different. There's ChatGPT 3.5, 4.4, then there's Turbo and 4.0 with the Omni. So that makes a difference as to what models being used in the back end. It makes a big difference. And then there's a document library. Now we could use a SharePoint list. We could use a document library. You can use other data sources. A document library essentially is a OneDrive folder. So you're using like files from OneDrive. Could you use Dataverse? Could you use files from AWS or other sources? Yeah, it's possible. And the thing is, so what happens is the query comes in, the query is analyzed, using natural language processing to understand what the person really wants. That's run through some cycles of what they call retrieval augmented generation to, it's sort of like a proposed list of these sets of documents may apply or may not, and you could regulate how many documents get returned, and to help you determine the accuracy of it. And it's kind of high level, but let's just say that is look at it that way abstractly. And then those documents are sent over to the LLM in order to process it in the Gen AI model that it can do. Like James was saying, you could or I was saying also you could do it formally, informally, 12-year-old, like a pirate, I mean, anything like that, whether memo, bulleted list, an email, all that's coming from the LLM's ability to understand how you want to see this information. Then it takes that stuff you're feeding it, the documents you're feeding it, and then process it and returns it. And like James was showing, it can also supplement it with this fallback into the Gen AI. Now, here's the important thing. None of this data is going into the LLM for training. It's all safe, secure within your environment, protected. It's not, none of your data is going out there to the LLM to be trained or consumed by it, other than it's processed in some sense, I guess, and returned. And then there's various other iterations. That's what they mean retrieval augmented. It's retrieval augmented. Then sometimes the prompt itself is run through the LLM in order to clean it up or identify it. The other thing is understanding the intent of the person. Emergency contact form. Okay, what is this emergency okay, we're reading, he wants to update the emergency contact. Okay, what does that mean? And doing this conversational orchestration. And what we wanted to do in this webinar is not necessarily get into that level of detail, because it does get into the weeds. And we're hoping more to show this practical, real uses at a high level, to show, look, people, we're doing this. This can happen. And despite all the hype out there, all the drama around Copilot this and Copilot that, and who's working for who, and what model came out, and whose stock is skyrocketing, and who is, all the dramas out there that you see in the news media. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of us here working in the real world, giving real solutions and real problems. And that's kind of what the intention of this webinar was, more than anything else. So really to stimulate some ideas here, some conversations, and say, well, what can we do? And if we can't do it, or it's impossible, or too costly, or too, we'll tell you that too, but it's just giving it a, looking at it as like, we're all in this together, trying to figure it out, how to do what's best for your organization to be successful. And we find it exciting and interesting and challenging. And we like that. I mean, is that, pretty much put it there, James? What do you think? James, I'm muting it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I hit the mute button accident. Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah, I think that's pretty much covers it. I think that is certainly, all very good information.
Right. We need to keep plowing along and working out these problems together on this and finding out. So any other questions that came up that I could address there?
Yeah, a question about focusing on compliance. What's the typical effort level for that part of the preparation to prepare for compliance? And I think that a lot of that kind of depends on how many, what the types of documents are that you're using, whether the compliance standards you're trying to meet. So I think there's some flexibility there, but or some variability there, I should say. That's a good question.
That's a really, really good question, because it is, I think, what a lot of people rush ahead with putting AI in without thinking about it. And there's a lot of caution about not having an adequate data governance in place to, first of all, I mean, we could do a whole course on it. First you have to identify your sensitive information. Maybe you want to use Microsoft Purview. Maybe you want other document management stuff. Because you don't know what's going to be surfaced if you use a large open data, if you use like an open data set like MS Graph. It could be something that inadvertently, I started a Teams channel, or I started a folder in OneDrive, and unbeknownstly, James has access to it, but I put all the payroll information in there. And now James runs his AI, and he's got access to all the payroll information, because we never thought of AI finding everything all over the place, or just a slip in the governance. So it's really important to have the governance in place, identify sensitive information, tag it, use a taxonomy if that works. We're looking at SharePoint Premium as a way to implement that at some organizations if they don't have it. But basically what somebody said, what was that quote? I don't know if I got the quote exactly right, but he said, AI is going to force the data governance that everybody should have already on their system. I thought that's right. AI is going to force everybody to adopt data governance, which they should have had already going, right? So I think there's a big market for data governance, and we can help with that. There's this whole idea of AI assessments, AI readiness assessments, that we have a partner that we work with that can do it at a really detailed formal level in terms of information architecture, coming up with a governance policy. You know, it costs like 15 to 20,000 for a 2-week course or some 2-week analysis. So it's not cheap, but then again, what's the price of exfiltration of sensitive data and private information too? So, and we can work with the targeted data sets that we use, which are contained set. I mean, look, they're HR docs, If they're got bias, sensitive, personal information in it, you better fire your HR lawyer, because that is something that should never be there in the first place. What you want to do with HR docs, and this is what we've done at the place we're working, the government agency, you want to tighten down the permissions, which you certainly can do in a SharePoint document library very easily. Only one or some small group has admin rights to create, update, modify that information, and they go through a revision process. They don't just randomly put documents up there. It has to go through an approval process of the HR committee, where okay, policy 1.0 is now going to be policy 2.0 because the law changed in 2024, and now the discrimination policy, or like California, they're changing laws all the time. There's now something about reproductive health, something or other, that is part of the law that we had to change in the employee handbook. So you go through this revision process, but it's very vetted, contained, step-by-step process to change that information in that data set. That's why we think using targeted data sets of a contained set of information that you can tightly control the access and revision process is going to help avoid any compliance issues, such as exposing or exfiltration of sensitive, biased, or private, confidential information, right? So definitely an important question. I think that's a really important consideration, and before you just run ahead and start slapping AI all over the place, right, James?
Yep, exactly.
We're at the top of the hour. I mean, respecting people's time, they can, whatever. But if there are more questions, I can stay on a little bit, or you can, we can answer a few more if it's fun.
Yeah. No, I think you did touch on the. There was a question about using an ODBC link to a database, so I think that is certainly possible to link out to another database other than what SharePoint has.
Again, it's about rights, it's about permissions, it's about accessibility, all those kind of things.
Yeah, that'd be more like
NITRO workflows. As you know, James, all our NITRO workflows use REST APIs, web services, Azure functions. So, while incorporating our NITRO Studio business process automation capabilities, we're able to integrate with HR, finance, ERP, any database really. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, we've done so many of them, right? Network discovery tools. I mean, you name it, right?
Oh yeah.
Financial, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. But certainly, any other questions that come up, we're happy to field them. I think you had the contact information, sales@crocanyon.com or hello@crocanyon.com, or jamesr@crocanyon.com. Whatever works. Send it. Yeah, there's hello@crocanyon.com. Yeah, send it along, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. But yeah, we've my dad said we've been really focused on the AI world and steeped in it deeply. So if you have any questions, we're happy to carry on lengthy multi-hour conversations if you want. So
get real world done. I think we'll have another iteration of this towards the end of the summer, where we'll even have more cool features like multimodal and all kinds of cool and interesting things. It's really fascinating. I find it a lot of fun. But anyway, thank you everyone for attending, and have a good day. Hope this was helpful. Thank you, James. Thank you, Krista. And hope to hear from you. We're here. If we don't, either by email, by phone, or can meet at some of these conferences or whatever and discuss what your AI goals are, what your needs are, what your interest is, and go from there. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.